It is now 6:30. I'm going to call to order the Trophy Club Mud 1 Board of Directors. All directors are present. Vice President Rose, Vice President Secretary Treasurer Flynn, Director Chapman, Director Castaway, and myself. So we have a quorum. Citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the board on any matter, and it is 6:30. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the board on any matter, whether or not it's posted on the agenda. The board is not permitted to take action on or discuss any comments made to the board at this time concerning the item not listed on the agenda. The board will hear comments on specific agenda items prior to the board addressing those items. You may speak up to 4 minutes or the time determined by the president or presiding officer. To speak during this item, you must complete the speaker's form that includes the topic of your statement. Citizen comments should be limited to matters over which the board has authority. Do we have any citizens' comments?
No.
Hearing that, we will move to the consent agenda. All matters listed as consent agenda are considered to be routine by the board of directors and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion on these items. If discussion is desired, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Item number 1, consider and take appropriate action to approve the consent agenda. A, October 2018 check register. B, October 15, 2018 regular meeting minutes. C, November 7th, 2018 special meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda, items A, B, and C.
We have a motion by Secretary Treasurer Flynn to approve the consent agenda 1A, B, and C. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Director Chapman. All in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. I'd like to move up our executive session, go directly to item number 8. Does anyone disagree with me taking that action? Seeing no disagreement, we'll immediately move into executive session. Pursuant to Section 551-071 of the Texas Open Meeting Act, the board will consult with its attorney in executive session on a matter in which the duty of the attorney of the governmental body under disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the Open Meeting Act, or to seek advice of counsel on legal matters involving pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers. A, contractor breach performance and payment issues related to district's contract with Weber Cadagua Partners for construction of wastewater treatment plant improvements. B, Trophy Club Mud Utility District 1 versus Arcadia Services LLC in the District Court of Tarrant County, Court 141 Judicial District, cause number 141-299-351-18. And C, claims for damages caused by district facilities and operations to property located at 1040 Trophy Club Drive. Item number 9, pursuant to Section 551-072 of the Texas Open Meeting Act, the board will deliberate on the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if deliberations in an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the position of the governmental body in negotiations with the third party. A, district real property located at 100 Municipal Drive and 1501 Junction Way. We will go into executive session at 6:34 p.m. It is 7:44. We're returning back into regular session. No actions were taken on any executive session item. Item number 2. It is, I said it's 7:44. Consider and take appropriate action to appoint representatives to the City of Fort Worth Wholesale Water Customer Advisory Committee for fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2019. Staff?
Mr. President, by contract with, or wholesale contract with Fort Worth, we're supposed to annually appoint folks to this committee. I recommend that Mike McMahon be our primary representative and that Stephen Krolshek be our backup, I guess. I forget if it's backup or
Alternate.
alternate, alternate.
You don't want to do it again this year.
No, I didn't
I
do it last year.
understand. I understand. Okay, I move to appoint Mike McMahon as the voting member and Stephen Krozek as the alternate member to the Wholesale Water and Wastewater Customer Advisory Committee in Fort Worth.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice President Rose to appoint Mike McMahon as the voting member and Stephen Krochek as the alternate to the City of Fort Worth Wholesale Water Customer Advisory Committee for fiscal year 2018, which is October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2019. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Motion was seconded by Director Castaway. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thought you were so upset you were leaving.
Not yet.
I didn't get picked.
Okay. Item number 3, consider and take appropriate action regarding approval of contract number 2018 112601 with United Healthcare Company for employee healthcare benefits effective January 1st, 2019. Staff.
Mr. President, I think we'll defer this to Stephen to walk us through. He's our HR manager as well as our finance manager, so
Good evening, directors. In your packet there, you will see on page 16, we have the employee insurance cost comparison. Every year, we have open enrollment to look at what we have as far as insurance and for medical, vision, life. This year, we used to have Aetna for the last 2 fiscal years, or 2 calendar years technically. This year, Aetna is no longer approving ERISA clients here. That's basically dropping any government entities, any school districts, anybody that has a state retirement system there. That's just the way their contract is written. So we, last year, thought we were going to be dropped by Aetna, but we kind of happened to fall under the radar, being a special district. This year, we did officially get dropped. So we had to go out and compare a few other plans. What in front of you here is United Healthcare All Savers and Blue Cross Blue Shield. These are the best 2 comparison. We compared multiple plans. These are the best 2 that we saw in the packet. So as you see in your packet here, we want to stay comparable to what we have with Aetna for the employees. Every insurance provider has a few different options. We being 20 or less staff, we're limited on what kind of plans we can get into and what options are available for us. So it was kind of a give and take for some options. During the budget, we knew we were going to have to go out for a new insurance plan for medical, so we did budget 25%. If you look at your handout here, you'll see Aetna and the grand total for Aetna, and then you'll see the next programs we have, which is United Healthcare All Savers, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then what we actually have budgeted. As you see, we had 25% budgeted.
25% increase.
Sorry, correct. 25% increase over what we had in the Aetna plan over the last year. And then we have United Healthcare All Savers, which is what the staff is recommending. It's at a 13.19% increase. Then the other plan that we had, the next best here, is Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is at over a 40% increase. So without getting too far into each and every individual plan, the overall cost for this, like I said, is going to go up 13.19%, which is actually going to be under budget if every employee was to stay on what we had budgeted for the plan. Later in your packet here, you'll see a breakdown of each program and what they have as far as what the coverage is, what the breakdown for the deductibles, the breakdown for the max out-of-pocket. Once again, as with the last 2 years, we have 2 plans provided for the employees. One is your standard plan. The next one is your buy-up program. The MUD covers the MUD will cover the employee only for the standard program, and then the employee has an option to go a little bit reduced deductible and out-of-pocket, and then the employee is then responsible for the additional cost for that. Just like with the last couple of years, the MUD will pay the 50% of the difference if anybody was to go from employee only to employee and spouse, employee and children, or the family program. So staff recommends that we go with the United All Savers and provide these two options for their plans. Do I have any questions on those? Yes, sir.
I have, as I looked at this, yes, there's an increase in cost on the organization side, but there's also an increase in cost on the employee side because the amount of deductible, as I see it, has gone, for one thing, has gone up.
Correct.
And so, I mean, it went from $1,000 to $1,500. That's just one that I picked out. Is there any chance that you can tell me what other increased costs an employee might have?
So there is a slight variance. So there's a couple different things. I guess we can kind of go into the plan itself. Aetna has some items that, for instance, for the hospital where it waives the deductible and actually only have a copay with Aetna. No other provider has the same option. So as an employee, we are losing a few items that were nice and benefits with Aetna. Then we can kind of gain a few things. And for instance, with United Healthcare, they have some special incentives to stay healthy, as far as tracking your steps, going and getting routine checkups throughout the year, where they will go and cut an individual a check for doing all these parameters or all these qualifications for it. They have to have a deal where they can call the doctor in on the phone instead of actually going to a doctor's office and actually getting to be the right prescription over the phone. There's a few perks we're getting versus switching, so we're kind of giving some things up and getting some other things in return. As far as the plans, for instance, the generic brand drugs are a little bit more expensive than they were with that now. As you can know, whenever the underwriters go in and write up programs, because we are under 50 employees, we are very limited to what options we really have to give or take. So we don't have as many flexibility as we would with some other programs if we were bigger. So the drugs will be a little bit different depending on generic brand, depending on what employees have. We don't dive into what every employee takes or uses, but when we do open enrollment, we will have a list that gives them an option. We'll have the broker come in, they'll give them a list and gives them the option to what name brand versus generic and kind of help them make the switch. Same thing with the network on doctors, if they have to make a switch for the doctors. Now there is another cost that will go up, obviously. So the base cost is what the MUD provides. So then you also have the 50% increase for, with the MUD will create 50% of the increase for the family. So if you have somebody that, say, for instance, that is on family right now, they're on family for Aetna, with the regular program, the MUD pays its normal price. It will actually be slightly cheaper for them than it would be currently now as we speak, because of the variance from the way Aetna's program was laid out for there's an X base cost, and there's a cost to go up to the employee and children, employee to spouse, and employee to family. Well, the difference is actually a little bit smaller on United Healthcare than it is on Aetna, which actually results in the MUD carrying a little bit more of that impact. So, for instance, for family, it's actually going to wind up being $30 cheaper a month for them if they have the same exact plan today as they do when we do the open enrollment with United Healthcare. It won't be any additional.
Not exactly the same plan. Because
Not
they still have
exactly,
the-
but this
because
is
they
as
still have
close
the
as we can.
deductible. I mean, I keep looking at that. That's $500 a year.
I,
that you can pay. Go ahead.
yeah, I don't see what you see, but I want to make sure I'm looking at the right plan. So the All Savers one we're looking at is the P1500 versus the P3000, correct?
Well, there's two. So so you have the regular plan, which is going to be the 3060E, the P3000. That's your standard program, and then you have the buy up, which is the other one. So the
Okay,
MUD pays.
So you're comparing the buy up versus the.
These two are reversed. This is the standard plan here.
Right.
And on the next page, the standard plan is this column.
Yeah, so if you look at the program, it goes right now. Currently, we have 3,000 for individual for annual. Then it would be 3,000. So it's going to be the
Oh, I
same.
see. Sorry,
No,
yeah.
it's the buy. It's reversed on the UHC one.
Okay, so
Okay.
3,000 is the standard.
Now there is a difference if you look at the
Yeah.
buy up, and I did talk to our broker about this. You look at the buy up. There's 1,000 for the individual for the deductible, versus 1,500 now for the buy-up.
Okay.
Okay, so, yeah.
Versus,
So,
and then if
so our
you-
standard is the 3,000?
correct, standards are 3,000 for the individual, and then for max out of pocket, it's 5,500 for individual.
And actually, it's like,
It's identical as far as the standard program is from Aetna. For just the deductible and the max. What we really ran into is keeping the deductible. You know, when you meet your deductible, then you have that additional max out of pocket. And a lot of the plans we ran into is because of the size of us is we ran in that 80%. So we would still cover as an employee. You still have to cover the 20% difference, and that would eat your max up a lot quicker. So we went ahead and went with this one, even for the buy-up, even though it's $500 more for the deductible, but it's in it, you know, and then it's the max is 4,000 compared to our max now is 3,500, so it's $500 difference there. But with the 100% coverage there, we felt it was a better program versus from the other options that we had. We try to stay as comparable as we can to Aetna, but nothing's going to exactly mirror image each other.
yeah.
We just don't have enough buying power for employee size to really make a plan that we exactly want. And, you know, as you start moving things around, prices start to go up pretty quick. The more you move that deductible and max out of pocket. One of the good things we do get about this, and it's not going to be a huge factor, but it's a little bit of benefit, is with x-rays, is for instance for this, depending on how it's billed, there's a chance that the x-rays would be 100% covered versus having an additional supplemental bill later down the month for the employee. So there's a few little things, but like I said, we try to stay as comparable as we could.
So when you sign up for it, you would have the option of selecting with or without x-rays.
So correct, there is an option. So the pricing I gave you is with the x-rays covered into it. We could also go a little bit cheaper and remove the x-rays if we wanted to for that plan, or if the board decided to.
Okay.
Staff recommended this. Did we kind of get a feel for the employees, what they kind of like?
Correct. So what we did is we went out and looked at the price comparison is what we're trying to find out. We want to try to keep the price around the same, if not a little bit cheaper, not have the employee hit most of this up. We looked at majority of what we have right now enrolled. Majority of it is individual only, which means the MUD's going to be covering 100% of it. So there's a group of the managers all got together. We went over everything that we had here, written all the plans. Now, we haven't presented this completely to the staff because we do that in open enrollment when we go over to everybody in the staff. But we compared everything that we had as far as price value for what we're getting, how close it to the deductible, how close to everything that we match here. We didn't go out and take it out to a vote or anything like that, but we did have a panel of five managers all got together and went over everything. We're 4 managers, and Desiree all got together and we went over and basically sorted it all out.
I just didn't want to see us just, okay, this is your choice, bingo.
Yeah, we just blame staff.
You just blame second.
Staff did recommend with the lab x-ray coverage.
Correct. And staff was, when we did get together and realized it would be a good benefit to have, and we're still under budget, we're going with the x-ray. So with that 13%, that's with the lab and x-ray part. Now it's a weird coverage the way it works. You know, there's some fine details there depending on how it's billed. So if you go out to an imaging place, it's not going to be covered like that. You will have a supplemental bill, but if the doctor's house does bill it out, let's say a doctor has lab inside their house and they bill it out, you will not have an additional fee from, whoever actually processes and does the blood work itself.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
No, I like the kind of the kicker at the end of the year, the motivational piece. If you're you're getting your physicals, you're getting your, whatever those list of things Stephen talked about, then they'll kind of cut you a check. It's probably not a lot of money, but might be a couple $100 or something. Anyway, it's a motivator to stand.
Yeah,
on
there
task.
is, the broker kind of explained it, and we're going to sit down when we do open enrollment, the broker will sit down and explain all this to them. United Healthcare seems to have quite a bit of supplemental kind of benefits to kind of help out the employee themselves. Won't have anything to do with the MUD, but, the employee will, like I said, just get a check back. I'm not sure the amount, but I think it's, 5 just plus. I mean, it's a pretty good amount, but you have to calculate your steps, and there's a lot of parameters to do it, but it's just something, like I said, an incentive and motivation to do it. The doctor is I know some people who used it. It's a really nice thing not to drag your kid out there if they're sick or if they got an ear infection. You can call the doctor on the phone. It counts as a doctor's note for your employees also, or employer also. But you can call them in. They can actually write you a prescription for the ear infection or whatever on the phone. So it's really nice. But like I said, for the pricing for the employee, the good thing is it's actually going to be the employee is going to see a little bit higher increase on there on certain things but for instance, like if you do an employee only in the buy-up, it's actually a few dollars cheaper a month. But where it really helps out is if you look at the family's actually not going up. The MUD is actually absorbing most of the increased difference. So you will most plans will actually see a small reduction in price because the base part that the MUD covers is actually higher, and there's not as much of a variance between the base individual versus the family plan.
Tell me that again, what you said about if they go with the buy-up plan?
So the MUD covers the standard program there.
Yes.
So now as an employee, if I want to go up and do a buy-up program, as an employee, I pay the cost difference between what the MUD would cover in the standard versus what the increase is. So for instance, for my plan right now, I'm in the buy-up plan, which just reduces my deductible and my max out of pocket.
Yep.
I pay right now $117 a month extra to have the buy-up.
Okay.
With this new plan, I would now pay $109 a month. Not a huge amount, but it's a few dollars savings a month. So I'm not seeing the increase in cost.
Okay, so what about the family or the employer?
I can go down the list. So if it's an employee and spouse, they're actually going to see a reduction in $7 a month.
If they go
for-
buy-up, and that's if they
go
went,
buy-up.
and that's if they were on the buy-up this year.
Currently.
If they're currently on the buy-up right now. Yeah, I'm just comparing plans for right now to plans if we were to
Yes.
stay the same, not change family, not change anything, just stay with the buy-up. If they weren't on the buy-up, if they were on the regular cost, it will actually increase. The only one that's really going to see an increase is going to be the employee and spouse, just because the way their variance is from employee only to employee spouse, employee children, and so on. The way they do it here through United Healthcare versus Aetna, that's where some of the cost is different. So let's say someone does have employee and spouse. Now they can go to employee and family if they want to go ahead and make that jump, and it's not as big of a jump as it would have been had they stayed with Aetna. So there's a few incentives, so we might see some changing when we do open enrollment. These things could happen. But for instance, if someone's got employee and children, this is something we really want, as managers, we really want to focus on and really be sincere about. If an employee and child, they're actually going to see a reduction in $5 a month on the regular plan. If they're on the buy-up program, they're actually going to see a reduction of $40 a month. And families going to see a reduction of $30. If they're on the buy-up, they're going to see a reduction of $100 a month. So it actually helps them out as far as going forward with this new plan.
Yeah, as I look at some of these, I'm really at the same place I was last year. And that is that it bothers me that a 3,000 annual deductible in network and a 6,000
Right.
out of network. If you're making $100,000 a year, okay, that's not a big, but if you're making $40,000 a year,
Sure.
there's a long ways to $3,000.
We offer flexible savings accounts, correct?
That's correct. So that's another thing we do. This year it went up to, I think it's 2,700 is the most it can go now.
Instead of 2650.
Instead of 2,650, correct. So it does give you the option. That's one of the things that we will talk about on Monday when we do open enrollment.
Okay.
This gets passed on is give the option. So it basically, if you go in and say you just do a flat even amount, you do $100 a paycheck. We do it by 24 pay periods. It's $2,400 you would have in your flex spending. You get that from day one. So January 1st, you have $2,400 available to use. So every paycheck, $100 will come out of your paycheck to cover the flex spending program. You're
But
confused a
100
little bit.
yeah, but 100 times 12 is only,
No,
Every
there's-
paycheck.
per
Right,
paycheck.
so twice a week.
So
Twi-
twice.
So, but we don't do
Okay,
26. So the 2 months I have a third paycheck, there's no benefits that come out of that. We do everything based on a flat 24. So
Okay.
that'd be
All right.
$2,400 there. You just try to make it even round numbers, and that will
Right.
kind of help absorb. So let's say it's $2,400 of your $3,000 deductible. You can do that, and you're just paying $100 a month coming out that way. So we do have a few different options like that to help out.
okay.
But like I said, if you start changing, as employees, we would love to lower the max out-of-pocket deductible. When you start moving that,
It
it
goes
makes
up
a big
pretty
difference.
quick.
I understand.
This is as
there's
close as we
additional
can
cost.
get to playing around with all the programs we had. Blue Cross, you can see how much of an impact Blue Cross is right now.
Yeah.
This is the best we can find out there without getting something that loses a lot of doctor coverages, which is something we want to be very sensitive also, because
Yes.
you have prior existing stuff that's going out there. A lot of people don't want to change their doctor, especially if it's anything
Yep.
major.
Yep.
We don't like to get in details of all that, but just we try to stay sensitive and be, sympathetic to anything that's out there. So this is something that has a very good coverage program out there, widely accepted and very close to what we have.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Well, you were talking about other doctors and that stuff. Are the comparable in-plan, out-plan doctors comparable to the two?
Yeah, I mean, Blue Cross Blue Shield will have a bigger network.
But, yeah.
But United Healthcare has gotten better over the years. I've heard good things. The broker, we leaned on the broker's knowledge of the market out there, and he's said that they are getting a lot better out there. We had some other options that were maybe a little cheaper or the same, but had less network. So there is a very good network is out there. So that's why we decided that's one of the good reasons to go with it.
I just didn't want to cut out an employee that had a doctor that they needed.
No,
and
I
all
agree.
of a sudden it's out of network and he
mean,
or she are paying.
I'm
big
hoping
bucks.
we can say everybody's in the same network. We obviously don't know. We don't know everybody's doctor. We don't dive into that kind of stuff there. That the sensitive stuff there. But that's what the open enrollment is going to be for.
Yeah.
We're going to allow them the option to go. Here's your network. Go find out if your doctor is. If not, here's a huge list of network out there that does cover.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's not like we chose to make a change. We had to.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Well, we would love to stay with Aetna. Aetna's been really good for us. One of the good things, I guess, in a good way also is, Aetna being, as far as the way it's funded is when we can see if there's any reduction, if we're going to be able to get any money back or not. We're not 100% sure, depending on what the claims are throughout the rest of the year. But there's a chance that we might have some contributions sitting out there. And the way our program's, same thing United Healthcare is going to be, we would get 50% of whatever the contributions that are remaining out there.
okay. Yeah. There are no other questions. I'll entertain a motion. Vice President Rose.
I move to approve contract number 2018-112601 with United Healthcare Company for employee health care benefits effective January the 1st, 2019.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice President Rose to approve contract number 2018-1120-601 with United Healthcare effective January 1st, 2019. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Secretary Treasurer Flynn. Any other questions or comments?
I would like to make a comment real quick. I did reach out to, for legal advice to Tony, and he did review the contract. I don't have the contract posted on here. There is some sensitive information there for the employee, but I did have Tony review it, and he agreed with the contract and leaned on some of the wording and stuff for the broker. So I just want to throw that out there. Tony, do you have any advice or want to say anything? No.
Anything else? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. At Vice President Rose' request, we're skipping for. Just kidding.
We wanted to get out of here at 8:45.
Yeah.
Consider and take appropriate action regarding action related to district rebranding. Vice President Rose, Director Castaway. Proceed away. Castaway.
Okay, real quickly, we kind of hit this around back, I think it was in September, and then we passed the budget, and we put money in the budget for rebranding, question mark. And so I wanted to take another bite at the apple. Briefly, if you go to page 2, was the one that I'd presented last time, and there were some comments well made that if we have a current issue with the size of the print on the current logo that makes it unusable, there are several of these on this page that are unusable, and so scratched all of those. and went to something that's very simple, and I went to Mr. Ramirez, took a look at his logo, which is B on page 1, the one that he had drawn up, and I tried to see if I couldn't find a font that worked, that was that font, to duplicate it, and I was unable. So then I went out and went through a whole, I don't know, 100 different fonts or whatever's in this Microsoft program on our computers. Checking fonts, come up with about a couple of dozen that would work, and I sent those to Director Castaway to take a look at, and she said, how about this one and this one? A couple of them, and so I took those for the font style and went just working off of B and did C, and then I had them in with the fonts, and after last meeting, talked with Mike McMahon, and he said, well, you know, that green's, I think that green on the TC would look a lot better if it was blue, like water. And so, and here again, the colors here are a little bit different from there on the computer. They could be sharpened up. But anyway, he said, why don't we try it in blue? And I said, okay, I'll take a shot at it. And so I turned the green to blue. I was in favor of green, thinking environmental, but his point is blue is water, and we are in the water business. So that got from C to E, and then I just played a little bit with a line between them for F and D with an environmental or a water symbol, and G and H are two that would have worked off the previous page. Thought I'd bring those back and see if the board would like to send those logos out for a vote of the employees, and the directors take a shot, and then however the vote turns out, then we'd adopt that as a logo.
I have a
ahead.
question. Staff, when we took the previous logos out, was there a preference, or what was kind of the mindset of the staff as we discussed logo? Do you recall?
I had 3 office staff who liked the current logo. Myself not included, I just had 3 office staff let me know that. And then I had the logo from Jason. And then we had 1 email from the public that wanted us to remain with the current logo and not spend money.
Okay. Staff, did we ever nail down, I know at one point there was a number floating out there that was like 20K. Not sure where that number came from, or if we've actually made an effort to try to understand what the actual cost of rebranding will be.
Mr. President, that number was pretty much pulled out of thin air. The original 20 or 25,000, we took a budgetary swag at it, saying, well, we got to put something in if this thing's going to happen. And we based it on some information that was maybe not quite accurate. It did contemplate, the number itself contemplated a change out of all logos in current time, as opposed to a transition over time. So Director Rose sent several examples of logos that you could get for less for my review. And so, you know, the actual number, I guess, is hard to pick. We just got our Vector truck in and we put the old logo on it. So if you contemplate, you know, changing out your brand all at one time, it's going to cost more than if you do it over time. So
How much was it to put on that Vector truck?
I don't know the answer to that.
So the trucks are roughly 150 to go on out with the vac trucks a little bit different. That's just the truck logos themselves. You know, there are other stuff, there are other costs that will happen, which are, you know, you have to move this into several different color formats, JPEGs, or I don't know all the technical
I
terms,
can
but
speak to that.
there's other stuff that involved. When we did do the budgetary process, we also wanted to do, not only were we going to do all at once the uniforms, the truck logos, all the business cards, you know, changing out letterheads, changing out the website, which is going to be another cost to get the website to do the new logo on there. but we are also looking at going ahead and changing out signs, that we had for the wastewater treatment plant. Just, the overall rebranding, the overall process it takes to get everything up to speed for it.
I think I can address your cost issue in this, and it says, the general manager says, some of it, or quite a bit of it, entails how you want to implement it. When I was looking at doing the rebranding, I contacted a couple different agencies, one of which was the logo on the sides of the trucks. That is a vinyl logo, and from speaking with the operations manager, he changes those out as they wear during use, and he uses a heat gun to do it, peels them off, and puts a new one on. And if I have my information correct, he told me about $75 to do a vehicle. Wouldn't be doing all of the logos on a vehicle if you change this. If you change the brand, you're only going to be doing the one on the door. A lot of the vehicles have other logos on them. Those logos would not necessarily change. As far as cost, go ahead.
I'm sorry, what are the other logos that are on it?
It's got Trophy Club MUD written out. It's got the TCMUD website, phone number, and that type stuff.
Okay, so they're
We got
not
the
per
truck
se
number.
No.
logos, they're just other
Well,
ancillary
they are,
signage.
yeah, but they are vinyl that you stick on, that type thing. Not necessarily a branded logo. As far as costs, the logo for the vehicles, the vinyl ones, contacted a company about that, and the lady says, well, what format do you have it in? I said, well, we've got JPEG right now. And she said, well, I have to have that in a vector file. And I said, okay, so what's it cost to get it to a vector file? She says, our price is $65 an hour to do it. She says, I think we can do it an hour. It may take two. So there's $130. Then I looked at shirts, and I contacted a company that does the logo embroidery on shirts, and they said, well, we have to have this digitized before we can put it on the shirt. We take your JPEG and digitize it. I said, okay, what's that cost? $30. I said, that's it? Yep. So my total cost in is that's 65, that's 130, and another 30, that's $160 that were into the project there. Now, once you've done that, and the operations manager's gone out and purchased all the T-shirts, I wouldn't advocate going out and replacing all of those because they're brand new, but we do a replace every year. So the cost of that replacement's already in the budget, but it ordinarily doesn't occur until September that they'd be replaced. So when you get into this a concept of transitioning into it, as opposed to doing it all at once, a lot of the costs already incorporated in the budget. Now, when you talk about the website, there's some consideration, I know, from speaking with the general manager about upgrading the website and some of the web work because it's not compatible with cell phones and bill pay, that type of thing. So, okay, so you're going to change it, but I'm talking about changing a little logo that goes in the lower left-hand corner or in the upper right-hand corner, wherever it's at. That part of the cost of change should not be that significant. So I personally don't see a huge cost to do this, provided we don't do it all at once. If we do it all at once, then yeah, all those clothing things, all those costs come in.
Yeah.
And I also ask about how many spare sets of the vinyl that the operation manager had. He said, I have one left, and that's to go on the wastewater truck. So the next truck replacement he has, as I understand it, he's going to go out and order, more logos of the current one, where we could be ordering a different logo.
I have one question. When you talked to the clothing person that said it had to digitize it, which means they're gonna make it into some kind of file, did you find out what kind of file? It could be a vector file. Most of these things use vector because of the.
Yeah, I didn't get in. She just said I have to digitize the file. I went, okay, good.
Yeah, vector files are basically 3D, coordinate type mappings. So if she's gonna convert it for $30, you should be able to get a hold of that file and pass it to the other person and
And
save that.
Even
100
save the $160.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I think my point is, if you're interested in moving away from a logo in my mind that says we repair clock towers, I haven't seen, and, you know, we've been out, give other people a chance to make inputs. My thought process is send this out, we all take our votes on it, and the employees take a vote on it. If A wins, then A wins. Go away and be quiet.
No, hold on, you.
So Love the Earth, Protect Its Water, is that on our town Facebook, or website?
No.
Where did that come from?
The water is life?
N-
Oh,
No,
this one?
no, Love the Earth, Protect Its Water.
I have no idea where that come from.
Michelle made that.
Okay,
Where's that?
I've never seen
like
that.
right here,
Up
Yeah.
there,
Love the Earth, up in the
Yeah.
top
to the
right.
top right.
Yeah, I like, the quick one that I had used that is not on here was on the second page, which is Water's Life. But the point is once you put that on, I mean, that's a fine a fine moniker. But it gets too much on the logo, and then it's not a good usable logo, especially when you put it into a smaller application.
So did I hear you right, Bill, that one of the potential next steps is to send this out to the masses?
Yeah.
Meaning the board and the
Board and
employees?
employees,
And take a vote.
take a vote.
Highest vote wins, right?
Exactly.
I guess the one question I have, when we had the previous logos, we did that, and
No, we didn't.
didn't it, well, Lori said people,
We never sent them out.
well, let her speak.
Okay, go ahead.
So, so what did we do with it?
We put it on the website for 2 weeks and invited, and I think I sent it out in 2 e-blasts and asked for comment
To what audience?
to anybody who signed up for the e-blast. And then I had a tagline on the website asking people to make comments.
And that's where this one came from, right? The second
Right.
one was from a
The
citizen?
yeah.
No, that is from an
Or
employee.
Internal.
employee, okay.
No, let me clarify. What went out was a request for logos, right? We didn't send page
Right. We
2
didn't
out.
send those.
Page 2 never went out.
Right.
It was a
I s-
request for
I did
logos and
I believe
inputs.
I referred to it, that it would be discussed at in a future agenda.
Yeah.
And then, but staff knew what was in the agenda packet. And I believe I sent an email to all the staff that they could make comments if they had any, if they wanted to submit any ideas. And so I did receive comment from 3 staff members and said that they wanted the one we currently have.
Which would be 3 out of 19 plus the board.
Yeah, but if everyone saw it and chose not to say anything, you can send that to them again. Doesn't necessarily mean
Well,
they're going to
yeah, but-
necessarily make a comment. I'll guess I'll give my opinion. Personally, I think the district has a lot of concerns. The logo is probably not one of them. Even based on the numbers, I still don't feel like we have any idea of how much it's going to cost. I think generating the files I don't think anyone ever anticipated that portion of the project was gonna be $10,000 or $12,000. I think that's the lesser of the cost. It's all of the time and effort to go and actually rebrand things, and I guess you could definitely reduce the immediate cost by doing it over a number of years. But I guess my concern is, out of all the things we have to deal with, this would be the least of them. I don't think we have a really good idea of how much it's really going to cost in its totality. And I just don't see a whole lot of, it's another thing the staff has to do, and I just don't think it adds any value whatsoever. That's my thoughts. I'd be happy to, I know.
And I kind of voiced that concern last time, Greg, and I guess my point hasn't changed. It seems like we're trying to solve a problem that doesn't necessarily exist, at least from my perspective.
Director Chapman, any other comments?
Also kind of agree. I don't see the change in the logo being that important to spend that kind of money on.
Yeah. I guess to me, the approach I would like to take is, first of all, let's take a vote on whether or not we want to even go down this path. Then if we do want to go down the path, then we can talk about what the path looks like. So unless there are any other comments, I'll make a motion that we do not proceed with the district rebranding. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Vice President Wilson, seconded by Secretary Treasurer Flynn. Any other commentary? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by raising your hand of not proceeding. We have, let's just get it out, Director Chapman, Secretary Treasurer Flynn, and President Wilson voted not to proceed. All in favor of proceeding. Vice President Rose, Director Castaway, motion fails. We will proceed to, motion passes, that's correct. He was plotting, he was plotting on that. I could see his eyes light up there. Okay, item number 4, consider and take appropriate action to approve the service agreement for laboratory services with the City of Fort Worth Centralized Water and Wastewater Laboratory. Item number 5. Staff?
Mr. President, in your packet, there's a copy of an agreement which allows us to access the Fort Worth Water and Sewer Laboratories. We took advantage of this service at least a couple times in the past year. It's not a high volume usage, but they have not modified their contract for 8 years or so. I'm told that even though I have authority to enter into certain agreements where we're not going to spend that much money, that this one exceeds a year in term, and therefore I can't sign it, and I need the board to approve it. So that's, the staff recommends that the board approve this contract.
And this is just a contract to use their lab services for, this is to, I guess, verify, instead of our lab, would be a backup lab, or are there just certain things that only they can do that we don't have the capability of doing?
The example that I have is that we had a water main break on Saturday, and we needed to get bacteria samples run on Sunday. We didn't have that available from the other laboratory on that particular weekend, so we took it to Fort Worth. They processed the sample. They're a good lab. They're about the same distance as the one in Plano. I think Plano is where a lot of our wastewater stuff goes. The distance, down to Fort Worth before I-35 was, at least had a toll road, was a little bit longer time-wise. But now it's equidistant. It's a good group of folks working in that laboratory. So,
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll give it a try once.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the service agreement for laboratory services with the City of Fort Worth's Centralized Water and Wastewater Laboratory.
We have a motion by Director Chapman to approve the service agreement for laboratory services with the City of Fort Worth Centralized Water and Wastewater Laboratory.
I'll second.
Motion was seconded by Director Castaway. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion passed unanimously, and we have item number 6. Consider and take appropriate action regarding the 2018 Combined Financial and Variance Report. Secretary Treasurer Flynn.
Not a whole lot to speak of, just because it's the first month of the fiscal year, so everything you see in the report is a month. What I did, kind of on a side note, separate from this particular item, is I did ask about, have we finalized 18 yet, fiscal year 18?
You beat me to the punch. I was going to
And
ask that question.
The answer, I'll let Stephen answer, but the answer is no, because of the audit process we're going through, and it's probably be, what, January or February or
So as of last night when I left here, I posted the last item into fiscal year 18, so everything should be done. There is one report that I work with the auditors with tomorrow, but if there is any audit adjustments or anything that the auditor sees needs to be moved around, he'll make a list of items, and then those will go back into fiscal year 18 once the audit is completed on that side. So there should not be any more postings, but you know, if anything is seen, that's what the auditors come in here to do, to look through everything.
So that said, I mean, auditors are auditors. They'll find something, this account, that account. There'll be some hopefully minor adjustments, right?
Hopefully nothing.
But
If I do
at
my
the end of the day, hopefully nothing. But at the end of the day,
Don't break his heart.
whenever that's done, we'll have a final,
That's correct.
okay.
So the audit gets approved in January when he does everything. So the audit goes in and presents more numbers. Then once the auditors leave here, they'll be here all this week. Once they leave, I'll work on the final numbers for the audit. I'll work on the MD&A. We'll get all that done, and then net position, everything. I'll come across at the audit, and we'll have that in January to be voted on.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Do we have,
unless there-
just quickly speaking of the audit, do we have a requirement for an audit committee to meet with the auditor from the board?
We will have an audit committee meet in sometime in December. Once he presents the audit, gets the audit put together, we'll have one meeting with them.
Okay.
Or the audit committee will have one meeting with them to kind of go over what the findings were.
Okay,
But that would be in December, then that would be brought in January. We have to have it approved by January and then send off to TCEQ.
Thank
we have a timeline for the water code.
thank you.
Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I can move to approve October 2018 combined financials and variance report. A, combined financials. B, combined variance report.
We have a motion by Secretary Treasurer Flynn to approve the October 2018 combined financial and variance report. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Director Chapman. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Reports and updates. Staff?
Mr. President, I have a few things that I want to call your attention to, but Stephen, let me ask you a question first. Have we introduced Desiree and I missed it, or?
I have not. Here in the audience
Would you
is
mind?
Desiree. She's our staff accountant. I believe she's met most of everybody on here, but if not, this is Desiree Grubbs.
So Desiree took over Stephen's old job, and, I mentioned earlier that Stephen's our HR manager. I think that's technically still correct, but Desiree is taking on a lot of the HR roles that we do have here with the staff. So she's a great addition to the team, and I wanted to make sure you all knew who she was.
Welcome, Desiree.
Yes, welcome.
Mr. President, in your packet is my monthly report. I want to call your attention to a couple of things. Number one, under the regulatory update, the last item is a sewer force main, which extends from lift station number 2, which is located on T.W. King Road. It goes through a small, very, very small park-like area between people's backyards. And after we had some large precipitation events, we found that when we were doing our inspections that the sewer line was exposed in the creek, and that, so if you look at that picture, there's actually 2 sewer lines there. The one in the foreground is actually an abandoned sewer line, which probably needs to be taken out. And then the other one, the smaller one, is in a place where the yard is eroding. Now, if you look at the other side of the stream bank, most of the property owners there have done some reinforcement work on their side of the stream, which, ironically creates a problem on the opposite side of the stream. That's what happens. So we need to do some stabilization work to protect that line. This would be a really awful SSO if it were to break in another storm event. You know, if a rock fell on it or what have you, it would be a mess. It turns out, though, that this is in the waterways of the United States, and we need to go through at least a small permitting effort with the Army Corps of Engineers. It's fairly limited for emergency repairs. We also feel like we ought to reinforce that stream bank a little bit. So I just wanted you to know that I've authorized CPNY to do the environmental work and the minimal engineering work to get this done. They've done similar work in the area where this pipeline is located. So it's about, I think, $7,000 or $7,500 is the total amount for engineering and environmental. And I've authorized that under my authority for contract. So wanted to bring that to your attention. We're anxious to get this fixed so that another precipitation event doesn't create a leak there. The second thing I wanted to bring your attention to is under the wastewater treatment plant. Our contractor had submitted a request for full substantial completion on phase 3. There's an error in my statement here. Oh wait, I got it right, sorry. This time without an exclusion for the occupancy permit for the electrical panel, laboratory, and operations control room building, which was excluded by the engineer's recommendation on the first substantial completion request. So really now the only exclusion is the mounting of the overhead crane on basins 3 through 6. Then everything else is punch list. So
Okay, so can I make sure I understand what you just said?
yes,
Is that we now have the occupancy permit as well as the substantial completion that was submitted by the contractor has been reviewed by the engineer, and they've recommended that we accept it, and we have.
that's correct.
So the only thing we have is punch list items left and the issue with the crane.
That's right. So the crane will be installed by the subcontractor who's
Let me guess, in another 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
No, I'm not saying how long. But
His little face, he was like,
He wasn't gonna get into that. He should have played along. So yeah, 2 weeks. Anyway, okay, please continue.
that's all I have, actually. There's a punch list that remains. It's smaller than I thought it was. So, you know, that's something to be optimistic about.
All jokes aside, when do you think the punch list items, have they come back with any summary estimation of when they'll be through with their punch list? Kind of their guess and your best guess.
They submitted a new pay request and an updated schedule today. They've not hit a single schedule that they've submitted, so I'm not going to place any bets on that, Mr. President. It probably says 2 weeks.
Okay, well, at least we're substantially complete.
Yes.
Moving along with the 2 weeks discussion, do we know who owns the abandoned sewer line?
I believe we own it, but I'd have to ask Mike that question.
Okay.
I have another question about that same area. Is there any danger of that exposed pipe because it's exposed? You know, is it more danger of breaking or?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So these things were buried under dirt, and that stream embankment is totally gone now. It's washed away and washed downstream. So all it'd take is one of those boulders to fall off around the manhole, fall on that pipe, and then you're pumping sewage into the environment. So
Are we doing anything to kind of like try and prevent that or mitigate that?
we're exercising our emergency repair feature, which an emergency for the Army Corps is maybe a little different than it is for you and me. But you know, we're trying to move it along as quickly as we can.
I just don't want us to get smacked around again in the in Facebook about breaking a sewer pipe again.
Thinking back of the time when the aerial sewer line broke and having reread the discussion, or not the discussion, the easement on that,
You having sleep problems? Will?
no, just recall problems. It seems to me that under the easement, we have an obligation to maintain. Are we, and this location here, is this town property or is this core property one? I understand the waters discussion.
I believe it's the town's property, but I'm not sure of that.
I just don't feel comfortable leaving that line.
The town comes and mows it. Everything that's outside of our lift station, the town mows periodically.
Yeah, but there's a question, question about who owns, yeah. Let me go here. I know the town mows property that they don't own, so. The, so my concern is that line's exposed. I'm not comfortable with that line being exposed. I don't need it to break, in my mind, before I take emergency action to protect the line, which I would call normal maintenance. So, can I do something to protect that line?
I'm telling you that we're actively working on that, and we've engaged someone to do the environmental work, which in this case looks like it amounts to a letter.
Okay,
So that's underway.
okay,
It's a lady that's done work for us in this area before. So,
okay.
you know, now one of the things you do is you bury the thing in concrete. I mean, that's ultimately what it is. We're gonna, and then
Don't break it on both ends.
so we're gonna bury it in concrete, but there's also a stream bank stabilization effort here to make sure that it doesn't erode more. You know, I've done a lot of these in North Carolina in particular. They have a lot of clay soils that the streams meander, and every time it rains, the stream moves. And so we'd always get in there, and you could do an emergency repair on your stuff, but, you know, it made sense to reinforce the bank on the other side of the stream. Couldn't do that without an EIS. So,
Yeah.
you know, generally your efforts to protect one side of the stream have a deleterious effect on the other side.
Okay. I think Tony had something.
I just kind of extrapolating kind of the question I think they were both asking. Outside of the process we're doing to go through the emergency powers or the emergency process we have with the Corps, is there anything else we could do proactively prior to that process? Or are we limited in our actions until they grant us approval?
I think we could go pour a big blob of concrete on it if that's what, you know, the solution is. But I think we're really talking more about some what they call gabion baskets.
No, I think you're thinking about solution. I think the question we're asking is not necessarily the ultimate solution, but the timing. So if could we go do that today without getting the
Yeah, I think
Corps'
so.
permission?
I think so.
Yeah, I think the Corps' permission is for the discharge of dredge or fill material, and there's a nationwide permit where you just provide notice for this. I think what I'm hearing is, can we just have guys go out there, see if there's any rocks that could fall from the bank on top of the line, and just move the rocks to mitigate any immediate risk while the longer-term solution is being secured?
I want to bury the line. I want to protect the line. I don't want that line to break,
Well,
one. And then the
quick-
bank can be pretty.
And any type of equipment like that will trigger the nationwide permit issue.
Oh, okay.
I think the immediate risk, if there's a rock that could fall and tumble down on top of it, we don't need equipment, maybe, if it's small enough. Can we just go out there and make sure there's no pending risk like that we can, without equipment, mitigate?
Yeah, I believe we are doing that as a part of our inspection. I mean, it's,
Okay.
Another thing is kind of like maybe some of that orange barrier or something, you know, all we need is kids messing around there, bouncing up and down on it, or even adults doing the same thing.
that's a terrible thought.
I mean, you know, our residents are-
Can you say mud bath?
Yeah. Well, we'll certainly look into that and see if there's anything we can do as an interim stopgap measure.
just to say, we're a little cognizant of the last one. We don't wanna, we wanna try and mitigate this. Also, is that white line, is there any chance that that thing could contaminate anything? Is there anything inside that, or?
It's my understanding it's abandoned, so it was from a previous part of this development. You know, that's the only information I have, so that's something that Mike McMahon told me, that it's abandoned. We have a lot of abandoned sewer lines out there, so the only, you know,
I can see that get cracked and, you know, something we don't even really control anymore.
yeah, I suspect it's empty. There'd be a worse problem if it was not plugged off on the other end and somehow it was sucking water in from the stream and discharging it somewhere else. Yeah,
Our own version of a switch drain.
yeah.
All right. Any other comments on general manager reports?
E, did you mean December 24th? Under item E?
Oh, yeah, I was thinking that myself.
It has on the calendar too.
No, actually, this,
That's when they do the party.
yeah, I'm
Oh,
sorry, I
okay.
should have brought this up, so, thanks for reminding me. Lori put this on the agenda so that we could let the board know that we're gonna close the office at noon on the 14th and have our annual holiday celebration here in the boardroom as a staff, so
Okay.
that's what this is.
So are you suggesting that the board, if they're in the neighborhood, are unable to just happen to show up?
I think this is where the staff likes to hang out with each other and not the board.
Oh, okay.
Well put.
Pardon me.
I would say,
Well put.
you weren't uninvited because you were never invited to begin with.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
The door, you guys can come up if the doors might not be unlocked, I'm just saying.
okay.
Your office door needs to be locked, so you can be out here.
I would imagine it depends on whether, you know, you're bearing gifts when you come in. The libation sort would probably kind of ease your way into the
Lighten
party.
the mood. Okay.
If you have a gift, there is a back entrance, we can switch you to the other side.
Make arrangements. Okay.
Bottle of Jack or something like that.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Stephen?
That's all I have.
Laurie? All right. We've already done executive session. I'll entertain, let's see, item number 10, we don't have to worry about 10, there was nothing there. Item 11, items for future agendas. Anything that anyone would like to put forward?
Bill, we've been kicking around our policy. Is that a future agenda item that we should be talking about?
It wouldn't go on, we can just bring it back through the staff.
Okay.
Okay, our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, December 17th, at 6:30. Outside of that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Holiday attire, is that what we're supposed to be wearing?
Whatever attire that you consider on that particular day. It's appropriate.
Careful.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I'd be real careful.
That's what I said, that you deem appropriate.
I move to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
We have a second motion to adjourn.
I'll second whichever
Been
motion.
seconded. We will adjourn 9:49. There's nothing to bring up, so I think we're good. 8:49.
I'd like to reconsider.
That's it.
Logos.
I tell you what, you can reconsider all
All
you
you
like.
want.
I lost the vote, I can't reconsider it. You can only bring it up for reconsider if you don't.
Not to mention, he's already